We're at the end of Perek Chelek Amud Aleph, 97a, the very, very last line. Context is with the Gemara discussing the arc of history, of world history, Jewish history, and the conclusion not conclusion is the wrong word, the apex, the culmination, the goal towards which the world was created, and we've been pushing forward to MASHIACH'S coming. So the Gemara now sets divides the world history into three sections, three eras, each 2 millennia. And we'll discuss a little bit what that means, first on the literal level and then deeper Hasidic level. Last line of Perek Chelek Amud Aleph, 97a, the very last line, second word. Tana Devei Eliyahu. It's been taught in the study house of Eliyahu, Sheishes Alofim Shana Hava Alma. The world exists for 6,000 years. Similar statement to mention before. 6,000 years of our world and 7,000 years of desolation, as we explained yesterday at length. And then the Gemara divides, in the house of Eliyahu, they divide into 3 epochs. Shnei Alofim Tayu. The first 2,000 years is, Tayu means like chaos, or vanity, nothingness. This is roughly the period from the creation of Adam till about the birth of Avraham Avinu.
A little more. Avraham was actually 52.
Avraham is what year?
He was born in 1948, and then he's 2000 is 52 years old.
He's 52 years old.
Starts preaching Torah to the people.
He's 52 years old at the big, right? So it starts with Avraham Avinu, not with his birth, but in his lifetime.
That's right, because the first one to
the first one, as we'll talk about, the first one to start teaching about Hashem's truth.
First it was she was Shem Favor, but they weren't going on.
So we're going to talk about that and what that means. Okay, so Shnei Alofim Tayu, 2,000 years of nothingness. This connects to a Gemara we learned. I can't remember where, but we learned a Gemara which talks about that the first 2,000 years God created the world was absolute kindness. In other words, it wasn't elicited by service of man below. Only once Avraham arrives in the scene and the era of Torah begins, then creation is dependent on it's elicited from our engagement with Torah and connection to Hashem. That's what elicits Hashem's creation in the world. Whereas the first 2,000 years is by Hashem's kindness just to keep it going, even though because in the future time there will be Torah, but at the time there was nothing going on to elicit from God creation. So it's chesed chinam. Right? We describe this as connected to one of the halukas. Where did we learn this Gemara? We learned it at this class. I don't remember where anymore. Anyway.
Those are the generation that angered him. No?
That's right. Yeah. And for 2,000 years, he was just
tolerated it.
Tolerated it for 2,000 years, right?
Of the goodness
connected
of
to
goodness of his.
It's in one of the Kilulam Chazdas, halukas. I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, but we haven't learned it at this table. So that's the first 2,000 years. Then the second set of 2,000 years, second set of 2 millennia, Shnei Alofim Torah, 2,000 years of Torah. As Rashi points out, as Rabbi Gimel noted, the generation of Avraham, and Rashi brings down all the calculations, the exact dates, when Avraham begins to teach Torah. And then the third epoch, Shnei Alofim Mashiach, the 2,000 years of the era of the messianic age. So as Rashi says, that by law, that by the order of what should have happened, at the end of 4,000 years since creation, Mashiach should have arrived and no more exile, period. Which would mean we're something like 1,400 years overdue. What is it?
1779 overdue.
1779 overdue. Way overdue.
Didn't Moses please add the extra years here for us to, when Moses...
Don't recall.
When Hashem was going to destroy us, and Moses was pleading, and God added years to meet out our payment for the...
I don't remember. I'm not going to say no, but I don't remember.
Right. But
the Gemara comments, I guess it's still a continuation from the teaching in the house of Eliyahu. And in our sin, or to our detriment, Shirabu, it's been expanded, and Mashiach did not come at the end of the 4,000-year mark. And yatsu mehem mashi yatsu mehem. And the years that have left since then. In other words, those years have gone. We're still here. Okay. So let's understand a little bit what this is. So there's a number of sources that I found where it talks about these three epochs. One, I've printed a copy here of one page that we'll look at together, where the Rebbe discusses the three epochs. It's rather brief. It's taken from a letter printed in the Sofis, in the editions, like the appendices to Likutei Sichos, to the Rebbe's collection of talks. So it's a letter written. It's written very briefly. And then there is another source where I saw that it talks about it much more elaborately, but on a Sicha, a talk for Parshas Chayei Sarah. Chayei Sarah, of course, is the life of Sarah and Avraham. Here I have another copy. And as we just mentioned, Avraham begins the epoch of Shnei Alofim Torah, the 2 millennia of Torah. So the Rebbe discusses there the change between the 2,000 years of Toyu, of nothingness, to the 2,000 years of Torah. At length describes it. It doesn't talk about the third set of 2,000 years of Mashiach, where here he does. So we'll read this, and I'll tell you what the Rebbe said about the first two sets of 2,000 years each, and then we'll see how I think they overlap, and that we can create a full picture looking at this. So this letter is from Chaf El, which is coming up, 25th of El, which of course 25th of El is the day when the world was created. Right? The Rosh Hashanah is the day when man was created. 6 days earlier, Chaf El, 25th day of El, is when the world was created, at least according to that view which we follow. So writes there like this in this letter: Minyan Diyama, and connected to the events of the day. But Yom Zan, this day, Hu Yom Chaf El, which is the day of Chaf El. This is printed in Likutei Sichos, volume 29, or page 469. Nivra Olam, the world was created. For Darshu Rabbi Senu Zachin Levracha, and our sages teach al pasuk on the verse which reads Bereshis, in the beginning God created, etc. As Shemayim v'Sa'aretz, the heaven and the earth. And our sages explain Shagam Toldei Seim Nivru Az, that not just the heaven and the earth was created, but everything was created along with it. And it's explained how right at the beginning, when everything was created, it was created in like a sort of potential state of mesh, and then as the 7 days of creation progressed, each item in creation, or each element of creation, got hit its form. So all the world was created in the first instant, but it only comes out in its actualized potential over 7 days. We'll leave that for now. So it says that now the spiritual internal meaning of this, that everything is created on the first day, all 6,000 years that this world exists, as we just described in the Gemara, the world is 6 millennia, and their events have been incorporated on the first day of creation. The first day of creation is not just a potential, the 7 days of creation, but the first day of creation incorporates within it all of history. The Maimer Echad Yachal Baris, and the Rebbe is quoting the Mishnah, which says that the world was created. This is the Mishnah in Perek Chelek, chapter 5. That the world was created with 10 utterances. God could have created it with 1, but He created it with 10 to give more reward to the righteous, and that God put so much effort, and punishment for the wicked, that God put so much effort into ruin the world. So this explains that when the Mishnah says that in one Maimer Echad Yachal Baris, He could have created the world in 1 utterance, what the Mishnah means is that the world was created in a state of Yachal. The world was created in a state of potential in the first utterance, and then it came into potential in the other 9. Similar to what we said just before, that the first day of creation, everything was created, and then everything came out into potentiality over the 6 days that followed. And therefore they were said, Kihu Koilol, because the first utterance incorporates within it, Koilol being similar to the word, same root of the word Yachal, which means capable, and that capability incorporates within it all the things that will come out of it. Koilol B'Seichel Kol Asar Amaris, the first utterance includes in it all 10 utterances, and therefore all of history. The Imkrain says that if so, the Rida Milsa, it's a clear matter. The ultimate purpose of creation and its fulfillment, which comes at the end of exile, Mashiach's coming, is also incorporated in the first days. Indeed, that's how it is. So says the Rebbe, say that the order of creation in Kavod B'Sifra Kabbalah is explained in the works of Kabbalah is B'tchilat Tzimtzum. First there's contraction. That is to say, when there's just the infinite God, there's no place for otherness. There's no conceptual space for otherness, for creation. So the first thing you do is tzimtzum, contraction, which means, without getting into a long Kabbalistic dissertation, but it basically means that God creates within himself a space in which otherness can exist, in which a world can exist. It's the first thing. Which creates a conceptual space for worlds, plural, even spiritual worlds. Now, after we create this conceptual space, literally the translated means a line emanates to come forward to create the worlds. What this means is, once you create a space for otherness, for worlds, then you need to invest within that space a minute, defined amount of energy that can then create the world. So the infinite light cannot create worlds, because that would mean the worlds would be infinite. It wouldn't be finite worlds. So first you need to create a space for finitude, for otherness, and then within that space you can invest a certain amount of energy. That's stage 2. And therefore, B'tchila, and then within that is B'tchila Boina Olamas. First God creates worlds, V'soisron, and destroys them, which is Olam HaTorah, the worlds of destruction, the worlds of nothingness. That is to say, in very brief, these are worlds that are created where the volume of the voltage of divine energy that's invested in them are so great that they explode. They can't hack it. And the worlds don't cease to exist. So they're high energy worlds that cannot be sustained. But then God creates the worlds in which there's a structure and says, okay, we're not going to give so much energy, right? So ironically, what makes the world function is the fact that God says, we're not going to give you so much. Because if you give it too much, then you're going to overload. So creation in a way happens true from divine investure in energy, but equally from God holding back a lot of his energy. Otherwise it'd be too much. That's basically what he just said. And this parallels or matches up with that which the sages say on the literal level in the Gemara, not our Gemara, but a Gemara elsewhere, that first darkness was created. Right? That's what we said. First there's God withholding himself, first there's a world of destruction. And then comes light. And that's how the world was created. But he added first evening, and then then there's morning, darkness, then night, concealment, then light. First God retracts, and then God invests. Okay. Now, the ultimate purpose for creation and its fulfillment, and Mashiach's coming, is God could have created the world that it be in messianic age, but that would defeat the whole purpose. The whole purpose is that a human being doesn't eat what's quote known as bread of shame. Bread of shame is actually a reference to the manna. The manna from heaven is called the bread of shame. Why? Because you didn't work for it. Get a free handout is bread of shame. A person is created in such a way that he requires effort to enjoy the fruits of his labor. And that's what God wants. That the world of Mashiach that we create is not just handed to us, but rather that we make it through our effort. And that's the reason why there's challenges, and that's why there's Yetzer Hara, and that's the reason why there's a Torah. Everything that exists is explained by this idea. That in order that the Mashiach's coming is specifically built through our effort. So therefore he says, Ki'im, rather, it shouldn't be the bread of shame, but rather, Yahanna Me'Priya Malei, man should enjoy of the fruits of his own labor. The Malchamtim Yetzer Hara, through his own battle with the Yetzer Hara. So he earns the Mashiach state. He creates the Mashiach state. He brings it about. To the point, to the point that he not only overcomes his own Yetzer Hara, but actually through his work, through his service, brings light into the dark world around him. To transform the darkness specifically into light, rather than just have light all the time. Okay, so what does that do with the first day of creation, and what does it do with the 6,000-year epochs? Let's see. This is alluded to in the creation on the very first day, which is there was darkness first. Shnei Alofim Toyu, the 2,000 years of nothingness before Torah is around, where there's a disconnect from God, and the world is running around doing its own thing. The world is operating in darkness. Then then light starts to emerge. There's a morning, right? First night, then morning, which is Shnei Alofim Torah, the 2,000 years of Torah. The Torah's light, beginning with Avram Avinu. So now the light starts. The dawn is. Cracking of dawn. The dawn emerges, light emerges, and Torah starts to be taught for 2,000 years. What's the third epoch? The epoch of the generation of Mashiach, which is Yom Echad. So right at the beginning of Erev, Vayivayker Yom Echad, there was darkness, there was light, there was 2,000 years of emptiness, 2,000 years of Torah, and then Yom Echad, one day. One day, that statement, one day, is compromised of both night and day. Right? That's the literal meaning of the verse is. There's a night, there was a day, and now there's a full day. There was a night, there was a morning, now there's a full day. Right? So there was darkness, there was light, and now you have a full day comprised of both of these, darkness and light. Namely, Shnei Alof Mishim Mashiach, the 2,000 years of Mashiach, and here comes a beautiful thing. Sha'azu avoda hakasha desman hagalus. That is when there was the real difficult work of the exile. That is to say, after the destruction of the temple, essentially, around that era, the last 2,000 years when we were living outside of Israel, without our temple, without prophecy, etc. And that's when the real work of Mashiach, of Galus comes. I just want to pause for a second and indicate something. What they're telling us already here is that even though the Gemara said on a literal level, that at the end of the 2,000 years of Torah, Mashiach should have come. But our sins caused it to go forward. The Rebbe is kind of telling us, even though that's true, that Mashiach was pushed off and it should have come then, but still, these 2,000 years still are, even though Mashiach isn't here, they still are the time when our service of Hashem is defined by the bringing about of Mashiach. Because we're in the era that Mashiach should have come. So our work now goes past, certainly not the 2,000 years of darkness, and even beyond the 2,000 years of Torah, that the 2,000 years of the work of bringing Mashiach. What's that? Asher and Yana, which the idea is this difficult work of Golus, which is the 2,000 years of the messianic age, which is therefore our work in bringing Mashiach, to connect both the darkness and the light, the night and the day, that should become one day. What does one day mean? Etzem echad. That they are one entity. The darkness and the light are both one entity. The verse says, with respect to Mashiach's coming, the darkness will shine like the day. That is to say, not only is there, so there's a time of darkness, and there's a time of light. The time of light is a time of Torah. But the time of light and the time of Torah could be somewhat detached from our reality. The light is shining, and maybe it overpowers the darkness, but it doesn't transform the darkness, that it too is part of the day. And that's been the service of the last 2,000 years of exile, is not just that there's Torah existing and there's light in the world, but that we actually engage the darkness, that it too become incorporated within the light, to take night and day and make Yom Echad one day, that they should both be one day.
Like the moon will shine.
Like the moon will shine like the sun.
Like the sun. Light up the dark.
Correct. But the light of the one God, and his name is one. And then the Rebbe concludes, this is as well, this is the general mission statement, the general purpose of each and every Jew, male and female, to bring light to the darkness of the world, through the light, the candle of mitzvah and the light of Torah. This is play on the verse in the Mishnah and the Gemara. Oz kivoy yunan the face shemesh yunan shmoy yikoyim hayu v'hoyel chavayel oirelam. The God will be our light, and with Mashiach's coming. Okay, so let's understand this a little bit more. And this connects to what they were talked about in this other talk, where they elaborates on the first two sets of the 2,000 years, till Avraham Avinu and after Avraham Avinu.
Just ask you one thing.
Yeah.
The Gemara, when it said that in the third epoch, the beginning with, let's say, year 4,000, does it say that Mashiach should come at the beginning of it, or just
that's the way Rashi interprets it?
That's the way Rashi.
Rashi.
Are there other interpretations?
I'm sure there are, but Rashi says clearly.
Does the Gemara say specifically it should start at that?
Yeah,
or is
that's
it
what Rashi writes it.
Or it's the Mashiach era more.
Okay, so the way Rashi writes it is, at the end of the 2,000 years of Torah, who dino shev Mashiach. This is the appropriate time Mashiach should have come. V'tichla golus, and exile should end. V'yibat l'shiv Yisrael, and the subjugation of Israel should end. Period. But because of our sin, it was pushed off. So from the fact that the Gemara says because of our sin it was pushed off, it seems like it should have happened then, and it seems like Rashi's interpretation is right. But as you can see, the Rebbe is expanding it to mean that even though Mashiach didn't come, but it still means that this era is the era of the bringing of Mashiach. Which is why he says, moving past just bringing the light of Torah, comes the real work of Golus in bringing the light out of the darkness, and not just light in and of itself, like Torah itself. So I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit more. This idea of what's the difference between the 2,000 years of Torah and the 2,000 years of Mashiach. So, in this other talk, where it explains the first two epochs, the 2,000 years of nothing and the 2,000 years of Torah, so there's two things to note. Number one, as Rabbi Gimple pointed out, there were people who existed before, who were scholars. There's Yeshiva Shem Ve'ever, there's Mr. Shelach, there's Chanoich, There were other people, Noach, there were other people prior to Avram who were very holy, and of a holy nature. That's number one. Number two, what's interesting also to note is, and this kind of parallels we're talking about before, is that the 2,000 years, the epoch of Torah, actually begins before Torah arrives. Right, it starts some 400 years before Torah arrives almost. The Torah comes on year 2004, 48, right? So it's 400 something years. So, but in other words, the work of Torah happens before Torah arrives, which is kind of something we were talking about before, that the work of Mashiach happens before Mashiach arrives. So what does it say about these two epochs, the 2,000 years of before Avram and the 2,000 years from Avram? It's a long dissertation that we're talking about, that we're breaking down the Pasuk and the Zohar, which talks about Avram Zaken Baba Yamim, and what's the difference between Zaken and Baba Yamim? The verse describes that Avram Avinu got old, and he was coming of days. And it describes these two pathways in Avodah, in one service of Hashem, what it means to become of age, Zaken Zashakana Chachma, an elder. Right? It says Avram became old, became elder, and coming of days. The literal meaning is he became time for him to pass away. But in the service of Hashem, it's explained from the Zohar and from other places, Zaken is one who requires wisdom. So when the verse said that Avram became an elder, it means that he himself excelled to the highest level possible. His wisdom. Baba Yam, his coming of days, means that all of his days were complete. This is where the Zohar explains it. All of his days were complete. That is to say, it's not just about him advancing to a high level, but actually that he filled all of his days with positive, actionable behavior. So this is not a description now of his stature, but rather about his impact on the world. That is to say, Avram Avinu was not, what do they call, like someone who's, someone who's like one-track minded. No, either this or that, and he can't have both.
Narrow-minded?
Narrow-minded, but there's a word for someone who's
Obstinate.
Anyway, I'm thinking words. It's not coming to me. Not monolithic, but like someone who only excels in one area and he doesn't venture anywhere outside of that. Right, and this
Narrow? Well,
yeah, narrow,
whatever.
Very singular-minded. Avram wasn't like that. He has both. He was both reached his chachma, zakin zashakana chachma, acquired his own status as an elder, but also his engagement in every single day in the world around him. Right, and there says the difference between Torah and Tohu. As we mentioned here briefly in the letter, that there's the worlds of Torah, these created worlds where there's too high energy that they exploded, that they couldn't hack it because there's too much divine energy invested in them. So to elaborate a little bit on that, which connects this idea, which is one of the things that make Tohu different than Tikkun, the worlds of chaos versus the worlds of order, is that the world of chaos is each attribute, each item takes itself to its most extreme infinite level. So when you take your own virtue to the most extreme infinite level, and the next person takes their virtue to the most extreme infinite level, then inevitably you're going to collide and you cannot coexist. So coexistence happens when each one, what's called hiskalos, means interconnectedness, where a person can be versatile and not so stuck one way or the other. So the worlds of the pre-Torah era, even though there were great people, but they were all is that the word monolithic?
Correct.
Is that the word? They were a one-track thing. They each had their own path in the service of Hashem, and that was it. They didn't venture outside of what their service was. So you had one person who excelled in this way, and one person who excelled in that way, but no interconnectedness. Whereas Avram was able to integrate two almost opposing ways of serving Hashem, and that's what Torah is, to bring tikkun, right? L'sakan olam, to bring tikkun, to bring order. That's to say that not just people should excel, but that people should be able to integrate with each other and integrate sometimes opposing elements in their service of Hashem, both self-advancement, zakin, and baba yamim, his engagement with the world. That's what the Rebbe says about that. Now, taking this a little bit step further, there are two ways that this integration can happen. This is my suggestion. You don't have to agree. I'm just laying down what I read, and now I'm telling you what I'm understanding and connecting what we read here and then what I just shared from you from that other talk. There are two ways in which this interconnectedness is to happen. One is, like we say, that Ois Shalom B'Mromov, the one who makes peace in the heavens, in that you have Malach Michal, you have one angel on one side who's fire, another angel on the other side who's water, and they should ordinarily cancel each other out. And why don't they? Because when they're both in the face of the king, they're both surrendered to the king, and therefore they can coexist, right? When you you have a cabinet of advisors for the king, and they're arguing back and forth on the proper policy. And then when they sit in front of the king and the king makes his judgment, they all follow his judgment. And somehow they all coexist. That's the way it's supposed to be, at least.
Or they get fired.
Until they get fired.
Like yesterday.
Or replace.
The day before, and tomorrow probably. Leaving current events out. The point being that when there's a authority higher than you, then you surrender to something greater, and then you can coexist with others. And that's kind of the element of Torah. Torah is a top-down experience, meaning to say, in Torah learning, a person really is listening to Hashem. That's really what Torah is. God's speaking. You have to use your own mind to understand and develop it's true. But essentially, God's speaking through the words of Torah, and you listen. So there's a greater light. The 2,000 years of light that we described here, darkness, light, and then one day, the combination of the two is described here. So 2,000 years of light, of Torah, is like a top-down revelation, where godliness is revealed, and therefore everybody is integrated, but not because they've earned that integration, but because they're subservient to the great light of Torah. And the truth is, that's the way it was in the times of these 2,000 years, which roughly go from Avraham till destruction of the temple, where you have prophecy and you have a temple with all the miracles and all the revelation, right? So the service of the Jew was to respond to that revelation. Right? So the integratedness that Jews may have felt, actually failed at it towards the end of this epoch, which is why the temple was destroyed. But their service of Hashem was a reaction to a great and intense light expressed in 2,000 years of Torah. But then comes the 2,000 years of MASHIACH'S coming. We're going to learn later in the Gemara, towards the end of this page of 97b, the next week or so, the Gemara is going to tell us that Mashiach is waiting for nothing other than tshuva ma'asim tovim, repentance and good deeds.
Yeah.
Doesn't mention Torah there. What, so Torah is not involved? Of course, there's Torah learning. But the Torah learning is in such a way that it's not top down, but bottom up. Teshuvah is a return. It's not me listening to God. It's me returning to God. So whereas Torah is, I'm reacting to what God tells me, Teshuvah and Ma'asim Tovim is, I'm investing in the behavior and my connection to Hashem. It's from bottom up. And that's the 2,000 years of Mashiach coming. And that's really the combination of both darkness and light. Not that I'm responding to the light, I'm responding to what Torah is teaching me. Much more than that. I'm taking what Torah is teaching me and bringing it into my life, and from bottom up, turning darkness into light. And that's what we've been doing the last 2,000 years. The last 2,000 years, we don't have revelation, where we're scattered throughout the whole world. Our survival, and to a degree our thriving, and our growth is really our accomplishment. We didn't react to anything. Jews didn't react to anything to be where we are today. We've worked, and really, really from the bottom up, created the Judaism we have, without reacting to a prophecy, without reacting to open revelation. We've created it from the bottom up. And the truth is, in the final comment, this connects to the slow revelation of both Kabbalah and then in Chassidus over the last millennia or so, give or take, getting from when the Zohar came on the scene, to the Arizal, Baal Shem Tov, and Chassidus. And what Chabad Chassidus preaches, it's true, it's an intellectual exercise, certainly, so it's a certainly Torah element, but what Chassidus preaches very, very much, especially Chassidus Chabad, is all about you creating your own personal relationship with Hashem. That's the point of Chabad. The reason why we call it Chabad, Chochmah Bin Adas, right? Chabad is an acronym for Chochmah Bin Adas, which is 3 elements of intellect. The reason why we call it that is not because we're ignoring emotion and just intellectual pursuit. On the contrary, the reason is because the Chabad philosophy is that the true way to engender emotion for Hashem is by you creating it your own. How do you create it on your own? By using your mind. So the whole entire, what Chassidus preaches and what Chassidus teaches is the capacity that each Jew has from the bottom up to develop his own personal relationship with Hashem, not just reacting to something else, but you discover it, you learn it, you develop it, and you connect to it. And that's the 2,000 years of Mashiach's coming, of these last 2,000 years where Jews have been, from the bottom up, earning our own Judaism, certainly not 2,000 years of nothingness where people were, generally speaking, not behaving properly, but even those who were tzaddikim were one track, not just like Avraham Avinu and Torah, which is a time when there's integration, but integration because we're reacting to the light of Torah, but like he says here, making the darkness into night, turning darkness and night into Yom Echad, into one day, and with the coming of Mashiach, it happen without delay. I think we're high time. All agree? Yes.
It's like the first 2,000 years is kind of Lamata was like above to below, and not much coming from below to above.
Yeah.
The second era was more, it's above to below again, but now there's some,
Yeah.
but it's still above to below.
We're reacting to,
But
yeah.
the third era is really below to above, and then Hashem reacts to us.
That's
from
right.
our teshuva, right?
Yeah.
Sort of like,
So this connects this actually to these to the three Yichayenu Yamayim. Give us life for 2 days, and then and the third day will live before you. The first day above to below, second day below to above, and then the third day is Hashem takes it to the ultimate. And connected to that very similar idea.
It's up to us to really do the work now.
So Baruch Hashem, we've been doing very well. Now it's time for God to do His part. We're gonna learn too. The Gemara is gonna ask these very questions. If God's waiting and we're waiting, what's going on? Really, we should stop the Gemara at that question. Joking. We'll continue. So there's more and more on this, God willing, coming tomorrow and going forward. Wonderful day.